Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Today in the rLounge, this mom needs some liquid courage to get her through her daughter's wedding. It's just this mom's world, and we're just all living in it. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my mother to bring her boyfriend I don't know or want to know to my wedding? I, 33 non-binary, am not close with my mother, 55 female, at all. She divorced my dad, 60, when I was 7, and almost immediately married my stepfather, Mark, whom, despite everything, I was close with. They remained married until I was 16. I was upset when she divorced him and went to live with my dad and stepmom. In my adult life, I've chosen to remain close to my stepdad and even attend his wedding to his current wife, who is a very nice woman. My dad and my stepmom are great people. Since her divorce to my stepdad, my mom has been in and out of relationships, each time claiming this guy is the love of her life, until they do something she doesn't like and they aren't the love of her life anymore. Both divorces with my dad and my stepdad were for very petty reasons. Dad, I think because he wouldn't allow her to get a new car because the budget was tight. I think the one that lasted the longest was 6 years, and I think it's the current guy she's with, according to my sister. After I left home, she never did anything with me without her boyfriends. When I was 25, she broke up with her boyfriend and tried to cry to me about it. After working with my therapist, I set the boundary with my mother that if she wasn't willing to do anything with me without her boyfriend, to not bother, and I didn't want to talk about her love life. She was very hurt and we fell out for a while, but she came back around about a year later and has respected my rules since, but we only get together about 3 or 4 times per year. I understand that my mom's relationships and love life are important to her, so I respect that we don't get together often. Fast forward to this year. I'm getting married to my partner, 35 male, of a decade in October. It's a small, intimate backyard wedding and reception barbecue. We live in a rural area and our backyard wedding will have roughly 40 people. My dad, stepmom, stepdad, and his new wife all have been invited. My mom asked if she could bring her boyfriend. I said no because I don't know him. My mom asked if she could bring him to meet me so I could meet him before the wedding. I said no and that I still had no interest in meeting her boyfriends. She said she understood, but she felt it was unfair that I wasn't allowing her, a +1, to my wedding when my dad and my stepdad were allowed to bring their spouses. I told her that the difference was that I knew their spouses. She wanted to know why I was so adamant about refusing to get to know her boyfriend. I explained to her that I saw no need since she'd just break up with them and move on to someone else eventually, as she always has done before. She started to cry and told me I was being unreasonable and treating her as if she's a whore. Both my fiance and my sister feel like I should suck it up for one day and let her bring her boyfriend so she can be comfortable there. I'm seriously considering it, but I wanted to know if I'm the a-hole here for sticking to my boundary at my wedding and what your thoughts are. Update. After reading everything here, I've decided to email my mother and invite him. I was already leaning towards telling her that he can come when I posted. I decided to set some ground rules for my mother. 1. He is there as a +1 to my mother only. I made it clear to her that he is not my family and he is not my stepfather, so I will appreciate her not telling other people at the wedding that is my stepfather. Mark is my stepfather and he will be there. 2. He is not to be in any family photos. In fairness, my stepdad Mark won't be in any family photos either, only my mom, dad, stepmom, and my siblings. 3. He is not to approach me at any point during the wedding and reception. 4. This does not change my previous boundaries. I'm only allowing him to come for her own comfort and to create a sense of fairness. I respect the fact she is in a relationship, but that her love life has nothing to do with me, and I wish to keep it that way. 5. I told my mother that these are my terms for him being at my wedding, and my terms are final, and that I hope she can respect the fact that I'm trying to be reasonable. I used this opportunity to remind her the reasons I put the boundary up in the first place. These reasons included forcing me to do activities with her shorter-term boyfriends in the past, forcing me to only discuss her love life while showing no interest in my life, and putting her relationships above her own children. If she responds, I'll let everybody know. Maybe you should have stuck to your boundaries. I feel like this might not end up the way you want it to. She doesn't sound like she's compassionate towards you. Seems like she lives life on her own terms and doesn't really give much thought to those around her. She doesn't get the luxury to be upset about the fact that she didn't have a +1. She had her chance. Update 2. My mom called me within 10 minutes of getting the email. She thanked me for allowing him to come and said they would abide by my terms. She said she felt really hurt that during her actions during her midlife crisis are why I'm refusing to meet her current boyfriend, who she says she's been with for 7.5 years, and that she thought things would eventually calm down enough where I would be comfortable meeting him. She said she now realizes that it will never happen. I told her that I'm firm on my stance. I think she started to cry, but she said she understood and only wants him there because being around my dad and stepdad and their new wives, my dad has been married for 23 years and my stepdad for 12, makes her anxious, and he helps keep her calm. She said she respects my stance and said it's her own fault I feel this way. I felt this may be the start of a guilt trip, so I politely ended the call. Verdict, not the a-hole. Additional comments on the post from OP. I will update here since mods told me I was maxed on my post. I want to thank everyone here for commenting and giving their opinions. Without context, I think it's a little hard to understand why I'm the way I am towards my mother. The past has given me a chance to reflect on my own behavior towards my mother. The truth of it is, I find dealing with her to be exhausting, and I want to explain to everyone why. 1. My mom is a gold digger. And that isn't my dad or stepdad talking crap about my mom. They're classy guys and would never do that. This is my own conclusion. My mom said regarding both divorces, I'd still be married if dad or stepdad just gave me what I wanted. She's also tried to start fights with my stepmom because she realizes my brother and I prefer her over our actual mom. It's true, I'm closer to my stepmom. I go to her for all the mom things because she listens and cares. My stepmom doesn't make everything about her. I believe my mom suffers from main character syndrome and expects to be the center of attention at every event, and if she isn't, she gets drunk, which leads me to my next point. 2. My mom is an alcoholic. She was in a DUI 8 years ago and crashed into another car. Thank goodness no one was hurt. She doesn't drive anymore, lives in the city an hour away, and uses public transportation. But she still drinks a lot. At her height, she drank roughly 3 bottles of wine per day. I don't really know or care if it's more or less now. One of the other boundaries I set is I won't be around her if she's been drinking because that just stresses me out more. I'll be honest, I'm anticipating she's going to cause a drunken scene at my wedding. 3. She slept with my brother's best friend 8 years ago when they were 21. This was a boy who my brother had known since preschool, and this ruined their friendship. 8 years on, and my brother will never forgive her for it. My mom thinks my brother needs to get over himself and that she did nothing wrong. Technically speaking, she didn't do anything illegal, and everyone was a consenting adult, but it still felt so wrong that she slept with someone my brother was so close with. That's why I don't really want my partner around her. She dates younger guys. This current boyfriend is 10 years younger than her, which is a little better. I don't judge her for dating younger guys, that's okay. It's not okay to sleep with someone you watched grow up. This whole post helped me see just how exhausted I am by her. I realized I don't want to deal with her BS anymore. I also agree that I have, maybe at times, shown it by being the a-hole and being unfair and unreasonable towards her. I just don't like myself when dealing with her. It puts me in a bad mood. However, the idea of having her more in my life makes me nauseous, but I want to keep the peace with the larger family, grandparents, aunt, uncle, etc. I've decided to take a page from my youngest brother's book and keep contact to just family functions. He's cordial to her at family events and keeps the peace when he's around her, but he keeps his distance and won't see her outside of a family event. So I'm going to do the same. I realize she could get drinks all the time, sleeps with my brother's friend, and just treats people like garbage. It's not fair to anyone. Not me for having dealt with her, and not her if she ever did or was actively working hard to change her life. I do want to make sure she's taken care of, fine, and healthy, but I also want to not be emotionally involved anymore. Figuring that out is above Reddit's pay grade. Let's get a community response. Honestly, I think you need to distinguish the hurt you felt as a kid when she broke up with your 2 father figures from what would happen now if they broke up. You're an adult, not a kid. Her breakups are her business and don't impact you directly. Expecting someone to come to a wedding with her 2 exes there with their new wives is a lot. Expecting her to suck it up to put you first feels like you're trying to play out some drama and feelings you have left over from feeling hurt or abandoned as a kid by her breaking up your home. Divorce happens. It sucks for the kids, but so does an unhappy marriage. Feels like time to go back to therapy, OP. In my early 20s, she used to call me whenever she had a breakup and expected my sister and me to be emotionally supportive. She wouldn't spend time with me without her boyfriends around. She was insisting to meet some guy, who typically is a lot younger than her, like late 20s or early 30s, which good on her, but still weird for me. She was dating for a few weeks. They'd break up after a year and she'd immediately find someone new. Wash, rinse, repeat. This was the pattern from when I was 19 to 25. I always had to spend time with both of them. All she would talk about is her relationship. She would never ask me about school, my job, or my relationships. She's only met my partner twice. There's a lot more I can add about how my mom constantly prioritized her relationships over being a parent, but they aren't pertinent to the story. She got with a real toxic guy when I was 25 who stole a bunch of money from her. We all warned her that he was a scumbag, but she didn't listen. After that, I told her I wanted nothing to do with her boyfriends going forward. She got really mad, saying I was disrespectful and that any child should want to see her mother happy. But I just got tired of dealing with her relationship drama, and I don't ever want to deal with it again. I'm sure the guy she's with is nice, since he's been around this long, but I'm just done. If she feels anxious about your dad and stepdad, then that's on her, not you. Sounds like a big ol' her problem. If you find dealing with her exhausting, you have to work more on your boundaries and limits with her. By saying yes to allowing her to have someone at the wedding is sort of teaching her that you'll cave and forgive her for hurting you in the future. And the comments are right. That's probably still a lot of emotional trauma there that has to be dealt with. And when we grow up, it's hard to set firm boundaries with our parents, but it has to be done. We're no longer kids who can be walked all over and emotionally manipulated. We're adults. Update. I don't want to be around my mother, but I want to be around family. August 28th, 2023. I've decided to estrange myself from my mother. We haven't gotten along since I was 16, and the last several years have been really bad. We only get together about 2 to 4 times per year, and it always ends with us fighting. I'm tired of it. I'll be honest, I've considered many times cutting contact with her, but the one thing that's preventing me from fully severing ties is her parents, my grandparents. I love them very much, and they are still hurting from my brother choosing to sever ties with her and keeping in low contact with that side of the family. My brother had valid reasons for doing this to her, and he will get together with my grandparents if my mother isn't there, but it's hard because they want to see him at the holidays and during special moments. I'm getting married in October, and this will be the first event where my mom and brother are in the same area. I've told both of them to stay away from each other, but I'm anticipating there will be drama because my mom doesn't like to hear she can't do something. I want to make it so we can see each other and be cordial at family events, but not hang out otherwise. My youngest brother does something similar. I don't want to write her a letter because I fear that it will cause more drama, but I expect she'll eventually call and want to do something with me, but I want to say no unless it's a larger family function. How should I do this? How your grandparents feel about your brother cutting ties with his mom has nothing to do with them. Your brother can do whatever he wants. If they feel bad about that, then again, sounds like a them problem. As far as you and your mother, just say no. It's that easy. My mother thinks she's entitled to alcohol at my wedding, September 23rd, 2023. My fiance, 35 male, and I, 33 non-binary, are getting married in 2 weeks in our backyard. We will be having a catering spread for our reception afterwards. We decided to have a dry wedding for 2 reasons. My mom is an alcoholic who is known for making a scene when she gets drunk, and my fiance has a brother who binge drinks and has had alcohol poisoning on more than one occasion. He doesn't drink all the time, but if he starts, he can't stop until he either passes out or someone physically restrains him from getting more. I also have an uncle, mom's brother, and a stepdad who are in recovery and don't need the temptation. Neither fiance and I are big drinkers, so we decided to just avoid any problems and just have a dry wedding. We will have a less dry reception, party, honeymoon with some of our friends later on. All of our families have been supportive. My uncle was especially grateful to us for doing this since he takes his recovery very seriously and has been 7 years sober. I sent out wedding invitations 4 months ago and said it would be a dry wedding and asked people not to bring alcohol. Now today I get this call from my mom, who I also sent an invitation to 4 months ago. Is it true you're not having alcohol at your wedding? Yes. Fiance and I decided we didn't want alcohol during our special time. That's so silly. It's going to make your wedding boring. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but fiance and I have made our decision. We want everyone to feel comfortable at our wedding. Clearly you don't care about my comfort. What if I want to have a little drink to pass the time? Like you did at a different uncle's wedding where you got so drunk and made a horrible scene calling uncle's wife a gold digger? It wasn't my fault. They made the drinks there too strong. Right. I really wish you would address this need to have alcohol wherever you go. I don't need to have alcohol. I just think your wedding will be boring without it. You want to have a fun wedding, don't you? It will be a fun wedding. We don't need alcohol to have fun. This is so stupid. Why should everyone else be punished just to make it comfortable for a few people? It seems like you care more about uncle and stepdad than anyone else. Or maybe I just want to avoid any scenes. I just told you that wasn't my fault. Just like your DUI isn't your fault? How dare you bring up that difficult time in my life? I was going through a lot emotionally. What the hell is wrong with you kids? You need to mind your own business. If I want to drink, that's my business. Well, my wedding is my business. We do not want alcohol there. That's final. I can't stop you if you decide to pregame my wedding, but I already made it clear to uncles and brothers that if you cause a scene, that you are to be made to leave.
Why do you kids hate me so much? What did I ever do to deserve to be treated like this by my children?
Are you really ready for me to go down that list?
None of you understand. None of you will ever understand. I'm the mother of the bride. I should be treated better than this.
I think I've treated you pretty well during this process. I've acquiesced to your boyfriend, whom I don't even know, coming to my wedding. I've even given in to some of your other demands, so please tell me how you've been mistreated.
You didn't invite me to go dress shopping. The mother of the bride always goes dress shopping with her daughter. I barely know fiancé because you never bring him around me. How do I know that you're marrying the right person?
That's because Aunt made my dress.
Well, isn't that just special?
As for the rest, I think you know why. We aren't really close enough for you to have any say in who my significant other is. Honestly, Mom, I'm done with this conversation. If you really feel that strongly about this, I'll understand if you don't want to attend my wedding.
Oh, I'll bet you'd like that, wouldn't you? One way or another, you'll respect me as your mother.
Sure, Mom. I'm hanging up now. Bye. Guys, I'm so livid right now. I have half a mind to uninvite her. I spoke to my dad and her brother. My uncle thinks her drinking is getting really bad again and has been wanting to hold an intervention. I told him I'm focused on the wedding right now, but that I definitely agree this was out of line and something needs to be done. What do I do? I don't want her ruining my wedding, but I'm so tired of dealing with this. Sorry, this is probably above Reddit's pay grade, but I just needed to vent. Update. I sent a text reiterating the rules. She said she knows where she isn't welcome and she won't attend. My dad told me not to worry about this anymore and that he'll see to it she doesn't ruin my wedding. Oh boy. She needs to save everyone the sob story. How utterly disgusting of her to say your wedding is going to be boring without alcohol. Truly the voice of an alcoholic. It's impossible for her to go and have fun and live in the moment. God forbid she actually be present at her own daughter's wedding. If she's not going to attend, then so be it. She's only ruining it for herself. Update 2. I sent this text to my mom. Mother, at this point I'm going to officially uninvite you from my wedding. I'm not going to allow you to change your mind, and I'd prefer it if you not come to my wedding at all, given your prior behavior. At this point, I've decided I don't want any further contact with you unless you decide to curb your toxic behaviors and drinking. I wish you the best. I hope you can find a way to heal, but I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry if this hurts you, but I can't handle you in my life anymore. If you try to force the issue, I'll be forced to take legal action, up to and including contacting law enforcement. Please don't contact me again. I went to delete her from my Facebook page only to find a post that she had just written saying how being a mother is a thankless job and how she doesn't understand how she raised rude and judgmental kids. She ended it by saying she hopes her kids get over themselves someday. I'm done. This sucks, but it's been a long time coming. My head hurts. Good. Stick to your guns, OP. Proud of you. Small update. Firstly, I want to thank everyone for the support. You have no idea how much your love and constructive comments meant to me. I'm glad I'm not alone. It's not a huge update, but I guess my grandparents and uncles have had enough. They've decided to stage an intervention next weekend. If she refuses to get help, she will no longer be welcome at family events, and she will no longer be part of the family. They told me not to worry about it. My sister will go as she's the only one of her children that even has a real relationship with her. But even my sister said that if she doesn't get help, she will cut her off too. I'm hoping and praying that this works, but given that she spent 1 year in rehab and the second she was off probation chose to drink again, doesn't give me a lot of hope. My dad told me he's hiring the local biker gang to act as security. We live in a small town, and the nearest big city is about an hour away, so it would really be expensive to have a security company come out. I don't have a problem with that. This is the type of gang that helps out abused kids and animals, and they do a lot of good where I live. The worst I've heard about them is they doled out some rural justice to a guy that was beating up the sister of one of the members and ran him out of town. When my mom got her DUI, she ran into someone's house and car when she tried to back out, but no one was hurt, thank goodness. And I guess it was the house of a relation of someone in the gang, so they agreed to help, and my dad is paying them to be security just in case. They know my family, one of my dad's cousins is a member, and they know my mom. I think she dated a guy in the gang at one point, and who to look out for. It may be moot if she ends up in rehab. I'm not stressing about her anymore. I have 13 days until my wedding. I'm going to focus on the final touches and enjoy myself. My biological mom made her choices. Now that I've stood up for myself, I feel nothing but relief. My stepmom will be there, and I saw her more as my real mom, so it's all fine. I've been through a lot of therapy already, so I've had to make peace with how my actual mother is. Weddings are stressful on a good day, never mind when your mother is trying to make it all about her. I'm sorry you're going through all of this only a few days before your wedding. Update. Same day, I'm officially estranged from my mother. Well, it happened yesterday. I got into a fight with my mother and officially estranged myself from her. It sucks, and I had a gnarly headache when I was done. Her drinking and behavior just proved too much, and I had to uninvite her for my wedding. I feel sad it came to this, but the most powerful feeling I have is relief. Update. I didn't think I'd be back so soon, but it's my mom's world and we were all just living in it. My mother got a 911 call on her for domestic violence on Tuesday. She apparently started throwing wine bottles at her boyfriend, who locked himself in the bathroom and called the cops while she destroyed their place in one of her temper tantrums. She wasn't making any sense when the cops got there, so they restrained her and took her to the hospital. She's been stuck in the psychiatric ward ever since. My sister was listed as a contact for her, and she got the call about mom on Wednesday. The doctors at the hospital spoke to my sister and think she may be showing signs of alcohol-related dementia and some sort of psychotic disorder, like bipolar disorder. They currently have her in alcohol detox, and from what my sister was told, it's pretty bad. They won't allow her visitors until she's out of detox. Not that anyone really has a desire to visit her anymore. My sister and I decided enough was enough, and we petitioned a guardianship for her yesterday at the request of a social worker who interviewed my sister, my uncles, my grandparents, and myself. A guardianship means they can hold her while it winds through the system rather than her being released after 72 hours. My grandmother's upset as she thinks all of the issues should be kept in the family and the state shouldn't step in. My uncles and grandfather are on the side of having a guardianship. As far as they're concerned, she's not welcome in the family anymore and they won't allow her to continue to take advantage of anyone in the family anymore. My sister and I say let her be a professional's problem and let them figure out what to do with her. My brothers don't care and have effectively washed their hands of her years ago, so their stance is whatever keeps her as far away as humanly possible. We can't deal with her anymore, and why should we? With the guardianship petitioned, I'm working on washing my hands of the situation entirely. I'm sure I'll be interviewed about why a guardianship is necessary, but other than that, I don't plan to have any further contact with my mom unless she apologizes and makes amends for her behavior. If that's something she's even capable of anymore. I just don't see that happening, and any compassion or understanding I had for her in the past is gone. Whatever state her life is in, she brought it upon herself. I just want to move on with my life without her in it and be done with her for good. It doesn't look like she'll be released from the hospital anytime soon, so there's no risk of her attending my wedding. I did talk to her boyfriend yesterday after sister and I filled out our paperwork, and we decided to invite him to lunch. He decided to break up with her for good, and we learned just how bad things were with her. He's a real nice guy who's been caught up in a bad situation, and he had no clue how bad she could be. I feel really bad for him. I did decide to invite him to my wedding, as I can tell he's a lonely dude who's been to hell and back. Not sure he'll show, but the offer is there. There was a time I'd have allowed an event like this to ruin the run-up to the wedding, but I've been able to separate my mom's behavior from the wedding. It hasn't put a damper on it. Now that my mom is squared away, I can enjoy myself. I just put the final touches on the catering order and am expecting the last of my supplies. My aunt wants to put the final touches on my wedding attire, and I haven't mentioned, both fiancé and I are huge steampunk fans, and so we're wearing steampunk attire and encouraging everyone else to dress in steampunk. Not required though. My wedding dress is actually more of a suit situation, but it looks really bad. I don't think I'll update again as I want to put all of this behind me and I don't plan to have any contact with my mother going forward. I'm looking forward to a bright future with my husband. My mom can stay in the past, and as cold and heartless as it sounds, I'm glad she's not going to be my family's problem anymore. The classic older generation thinking things can just get swept under the rug and that mental health issues don't actually exist. Post-wedding update, October 9th, 2023. I just signed into this account again with a lot of people begging for updates. I don't have a lot. I guess my entire story is now in the best of Reddit. Thanks, I guess. I never knew dealing with my alcoholic mother was worthy of a best post. I just wanted to rant and sanity check myself. Only news on my mother is she's out of detox and currently in a catatonic state, refusing to speak, eat, or drink water. They may install a feeding tube if she doesn't let up. I think she's trying to be dramatic and get attention. So do my uncles. I could be wrong, but honestly, I don't care anymore. We're not sure she has dementia, but she definitely has something going on. But doing any kind of evaluation while she acts like this is difficult. She also has liver disease, needs dialysis, and possibly even a transplant if she qualifies. The doctors made it very clear if she doesn't quit drinking, she will die within the next 5 years, and it may even be too late. I think I'd feel more sad, but I've had to realize that I lost my mother long ago. I did invite my mom's boyfriend, but he chose not to come. He's decided to get help for his own alcohol issues, according to my sister. I wish him the best. As for the wedding, I'm now happily married, and on Wednesday, I took a pregnancy test that came back positive. We're super excited, but haven't told anyone in our family yet. The wedding was fantastic, and the day went off without a hitch. We had a blast and are heading out to our honeymoon on Wednesday to Costa Rica. My brothers and stepbrothers very sweetly hazed my husband during the at-home bachelor party and made it clear they're excited to have another brother. My stepmom did all of the mom stuff during the wedding. That was already planned before all of this. No one snuck in alcohol. There weren't any scenes. The worst that happened was my sister crying due to all of the stress she's been under. I do have some sympathy, but most of it is self-inflicted though, because she enables. But all in all, it was a great day and I was surrounded by those I love most. I know a lot of people ask for pics of my wedding suit. I will see if there's some way I can crop identifying stuff from it and post it here once I get my wedding pictures back. Otherwise, I'll figure out a way to post my outfits themselves. That's all I have. I'll try an update after my honeymoon. Now it seems like baby is coming, so no promises. Congratulations, OP. That's such exciting news. As for your mom, it's heartbreaking to hear what she's done to herself, and the fact that you said you lost her a long time ago is quite illuminating. I'm sorry, OP. New updates. I guess this is an update for anyone who's read my previous posts, along with another Am I the A-hole question. My 33 non-binary mother, 55 female, had a meltdown that resulted in her being arrested and hospitalized. At the urging of the social worker at the hospital, we found a third party willing to serve as my mother's guardian and filed a petition for guardianship. She's going on disability and will be on disability for the rest of her life. She recently was put into a long-term psychiatric group home. She's been diagnosed with Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome with encephalopathy. Per the MRI, she's lost quite a bit of gray matter, and liver disease. She's 55, and even with liver dialysis, it's unlikely she'll see 60, and she's unlikely to be eligible for a transplant unless the lack of alcohol causes her dementia to be reversed, and it'll be a year before we know if there's any sign of that. Even though I'm pregnant with my first, I've decided to be the main point of contact with the guardian. I feel it's my duty as the eldest child. The problem is my grandma really wants her to come live with them, and it's causing conflict with my granddad, who keeps telling her to back off and that we should listen to the experts. My grandma means well and is an immigrant. She comes from a country where care for someone always falls to the family and government involvement would be bad. And for the record, we live in the US. She's becoming more and more insistent that someone in the family should care for her. My granddad says they're too old, in their 80s, and he's been angry because he believes my mother did this to herself. I think it's just his way of dealing with the situation and handling grief. He refuses to visit her, and my grandmother can only visit if one of my uncles visits. My grandmother is insisting that my sister or myself should allow my mother to move in and take care of her. She even offered to move in too to help. I told her no, and that I had to focus on my growing family, and I don't have time and the resources to take her to dialysis and her medical appointments, nor do I want to handle the conflict when my mother refuses to do something. If my mother decides to drink or has an episode, I don't want my little one to be around that. My sister feels similarly and wants to put the focus on her two kids and feels like she enabled my mother a lot already. My grandmother did not take the news well. Now I got a few of my cousins calling me and saying family should care for family. My mom cared for me as best she could, and now it's my turn to care for her. Normally, I'd never allow this kind of thing to get to me, but the pregnancy hormones are kicking in and I feel awful. Am I the a-hole for refusing to care for my mother and letting a third party be her guardian? ETA. One thing I didn't mention is that it's currently kind of an open secret in my family that I'm pregnant. I haven't officially announced anything because I'm only 9 weeks along. I don't want to announce until the second trimester, but family members are convinced, and I think my grandma suspects that is the reason for my reluctance. She knows we've been trying. I also want to say, I love my grandma, but she is hurting right now over this and feels like she failed her daughter. I'm trying to be as patient as humanly possible with her. I'm getting to my limit, but I don't want to yell at my 80-plus-year-old grandmother. There is a court date to make the guardianship official on Friday. I spoke with the guardian this morning about my grandmother and that she objects to the guardianship. She suggested my sister and I sit down with my grandmother, the social worker, and doctor where my mom is at, and addressing her concerns and working out a schedule for my grandmother to visit twice per week. She's trying to set that up after the court hearing on Friday. The cousins in question are nosy busybodies, and I don't like them. They're the product from my uncle's previous marriage to a religious zealot that I hated, and she hated our family. I had no problem telling their father what had occurred and screenshot the text messages. He yelled at them saying that my mother's condition is too severe for her to live with anyone and that they need to stay out of it and mind their business. I told them where to stick it and not to contact my sister or me about this again. I let my hormones get to me yesterday, I think. I'll try to update this weekend. Reddit has become a major sanity check for me. Verdict, not the a-hole. You're absolutely not the a-hole here, OP. You've said it yourself time and time again. You need to stick to your boundaries you've created because the drama she brings to your life is just not worth it. You know what's best for you. Don't let other people manipulate you into thinking any less. Update. We had the court date. My mother is officially under a guardianship. The grandmother did lodge an official objection to the guardianship and said her piece. She was shut down by the judge, who said the amount of care and security my mother needs is an undue burden on family, and straight up said family was deemed incapable of caring for my mother by hospital social workers before she was transferred to rehab. He also said if my mother was deemed competent, she could be looking at felony domestic violence charges. My grandmother was mad and almost had to be ejected from the courtroom, but she calmed down. The next day, my sister and I took my grandma to the hospital my mom is at. She's currently in rehab psychiatric hospital and will be here for at least the next year and possibly for good, depending on how the next year goes. Her attending physician and social worker were there along with the guardian, and I discovered they came in on a weekend just to meet with us. That was very nice of them. My grandmother didn't really object to her being at this facility and knew my mom needed help. It basically became an intervention, come to Jesus moment with my grandma. With the guardian's permission, they sat down and explained all of my mother's health problems. They even went so far as to show my grandma the pictures of a normal liver and the MRI scan of my mom's liver. They did the same with her brain. The guardian also sat down and listed just how much legal trouble my mom had been getting herself into the past 2 years, and even my sister and I were shocked as we didn't know just how many brushes with the law my mom had, but they had become almost monthly occurrences. I ended up telling her what some of the fine folks at Reddit told me, that neither my sister or I can keep her safe. What if she becomes aggressive or violent? What if she hurts my sister's kids? We can make our places secure enough to stay there, and the only way my mother's life even has a chance at being saved is if she quits drinking. If she lives with us, we cannot guarantee she won't drink. The staff here are better equipped to handle all of her issues. All of us were very clear that none of this is Grandma's fault, and Mom is reaping the consequences of her own choices. Next up was probably the most heartbreaking part for my grandma. She saw my mother for the first time since all of this happened. Now, I may have mentioned that my mom was in a catatonic state when she was hospitalized. She was still kind of goes in and out of that state. I didn't take it very seriously at the time, but it's still an ongoing issue, and some days she winds up back in that state, and other days she is more active. That day, she was definitely more subdued and very quiet. For anyone who knows anything about WKS, she basically is living in a 51st dates scenario. She has a day, goes to sleep, wakes up, and has no memory of the day before. I can only imagine how scary it is for her. A staff member basically has to remind her day in and day out where she is and how she wound up there. They keep a copy of the police report on her nightstand. She still is very confused a lot of the time and also getting used to being on medication for her bipolar disorder too. We've seen a lot of improvements since she started liver dialysis, and so we're somewhat hopeful she will get a little better in time. She's lost some weight but looks way less put together and haggard. Her skin looks less yellow, but she is very pale. She was sitting and trying to write when we came. My grandmother broke down when she saw her. My mother cried too and kept repeating I'm sorry. My sister and I decided to let them have some alone time together and grabbed lunch across the street. When we came back half an hour later, we told my grandma we had to get going and leave, but we'd bring her back next week. My mom asked when she could leave, and it was my grandma who said, "Honey, you'll need to stay here for a while. Everyone here just wants to help, but in order for you to get better, you have to stay here." My mom seemed sad and looked like she was about to cry again, but nodded her head. My sister and I gave her a hug, but I think she's mad at us. One thing we learned is that she thinks her kids put her there. If she wants to be mad at us, that's fine. Not even the second Grandma got situated in the backseat of our car, she broke down hard. She was sobbing the entire way back. I felt so bad for her. My sister sat back there, holding her while I drove back to Grandma and Grandpa's house. We stayed with Grandma for a bit as my grandpa gets agitated by too much emotion. She apologized for her behavior and for trying to force us to care for her. She realizes now how bad my mom is and understands she's where she needs to be. She's sad, but doing better by the time we left. My grandpa said he and my uncle will take her to visit on Tuesday, and I took some further advice and suggested we set up a schedule for Grandma to visit 2 times per week. My sister and I agreed we will take her there once per month each, as that's the most we can handle. Anyways, I really hope this is my last update about my mother. What happens now, no one knows, but she is safe and can't hurt me or anyone anymore. It is sad because no one wants to see their child end up like that, but it's ultimately no one's fault but their own, aka your mother's fault. She got to where she is because of the choices she made and no one else. You're handling this with grace, OP. Well done. What do you think of all this? Thank you for following along today. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to share regarding today's content, we want to hear it. See you next time in the rLounge.